time. Okay? Hindi ko na mai-record yung personal recording ko dahil puno na yung ano eh, puno na yung hard disk ko. Anyway, so let's get started. Let me share my screen. Mail reproductive. So this is the male reproductive system. The PowerPoint presentation consists of 54 slides, okay? And that includes the first page as well as the copyright notice. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so let me share my screen. By the way, guys, glad to see some of you last Thursday during the camp days. Okay? Although my apologies if we didn't have enough time to talk. Okay? Anyway, ayun. All right. So class, can you see my screen now?
Yes po, sir.
Thank you. All right. Again, good morning, everyone. And today's discussion will be about the male reproductive system. And of course, you've discussed this way back your anatomy and physiology. You're aware of the different structures, but we'll go a more in-depth discussion on the different structures that makes up uh, the different parts of both the male and the female reproductive system. Okay, so let's get started. Now, the reproductive system, both for the male and the female, is provided, okay, as a means of procreation or reproduction, and that will guarantee the survival of the species. Okay? And this is applicable not just in humans, but in animals and plants as well. So, this is the most important biological process, and all living things undertake this reproductive process because we want to preserve the species. Okay? Like for example, human. Okay? Now, in reproduction, usually it requires the union of the male and the female gametes, okay, which is known as your fertilization. Normally, the male gamete is known as the spermatozoon, and the female gamete as the ovum. So singular yan. Okay? So pag plural, spermatozoa. Eh, pag female gametes na plural is ova. Okay? Now, normally these gametes, each of these carry half the number of chromosomes. Okay? So they are haploid cells. Ilan nga ang chromosomes ng humans? Anyone? Ilan ang chromosomes natin? To E. Ilan ang chromosomes?
Hello po, sir. 46 po.
Okay. So we have 46 chromosomes, okay, or 23 pairs of chromosomes, okay. Now, 44 of these chromosomes are known as your somatic or your autosomal chromosome, and then two of them are known as your sex chromosome, okay, or a pair of them, which is Both may either be XX or one may be an X chromosome or and the other is Y chromosome, depending if the individual is a male or a female. Okay? So normally these gametes will unite, okay, forming a diploid cell, which is called a zygote. Now, upon fertilization, this zygote will undergo a series of cellular division. Okay? It will undergo mitosis until it becomes the embryo. Okay? So it will start as your zygote, it will form your morula, your blastula, etc. Okay? So this embryo will be the one that will make up the fetus. Okay? Usually, upon formation of the different organs, the different system. Okay. Now, in the production of our gametes, it involves a process known as your gametogenesis. Excuse me, and that applies for both males and females. Now, with the formation of gametes, we form the spermatozoa as well as the ova. Okay? Now, in the males, we call it the spermatogenesis, and in the females, we call it oogenesis. Now, the reproductive organs will also produce hormones, and these hormones usually will influence our anatomical, okay, as well as physiological differences between sexes. Di niyo ba napansin, mga males lang yung tinutubuan ng balbas? Okay. Although merong tinatawag na hirsutism sa female nun. A very thin, okay, right? So that accounts for the hormones influences our secondary sexual characteristics. Okay? So what are the different components of the male reproductive system? So we have a pair of testes, okay? And normally the testis is comparable to the orchid, okay? Because it is hanging within the scrotal sac, okay? Kaya pag tinawag na pag tinanggalan ng testis, particularly pag mga prostate cancer, kasi your testis will produce the testosterone that will induce further growth of your cancer cells within the prostate. So tinatanggal nila yung testis, okay? Para mainto yung stimulation ng growth ng cancer cells, okay? And the process is known as orchiectomy, okay? From the word orchid, okay? And ectomy, okay? Which is the removal, okay? Now, in mga inguinal hernias naman, we actually repair the weak abdominal wall, okay? And at the same time, we, kasi inner hernial, yung mga inguinal hernia, usually na natatrap yung testis within the inguinal canal. Okay? And so, ibinababa ito, ina-anchor sa scrotal sac. And this repair is known as your orchiopexy. Okay? So, kaya mano yung orchid sa atin. Okay? So, yeah. Now, the second component is the ductal system or the duct system of the male reproductive system. So starting from the seminiferous tubules, okay, we'll go to your epididymis and then the vas deferens, and then towards the urethra via the ejaculatory duct and out through the orifice. Then the main copulatory organ of the male is the penis. Now the penis is not, this is not, walang buton, okay? contrary to what others believe. And it is also not muscles, okay, na nagko-contract, okay? But instead, the copulatory organ or the penis is composed of a mga spongy tissues that are highly vascularized soft tissue, okay? And usually during an erection, these vascular channels will be filled with blood. Okay, so kung meron kang atherosclerosis or may mga ano ka, no, diabetic ka, nagkakaroon ng usually it causes blockade of the vascular channels. Okay, kaya nagkakaroon ng ano, ng erectile dysfunction. Okay, then also we have the different accessory glands like the prostate gland as well as the bulbourethral glands, or what we know as the Cowper's gland. Excuse me. All right. So here's a picture of the male reproductive system. You have the testes, okay, which is on the surface is lined by a thick, dense, irregular connective tissue known as your tunica albuginea. Okay. Then externally, it is covered by the tunica vaginalis. Now, at the posterior portion of the testis, we have what we call the mediastinum. And within this mediastinum lies the epididymis. So the testis is composed of several lobules, okay, that are divided by the penetrating tunica albuginea. Okay, so the tunica albuginea will invaginate through the testicular parenchyma, dividing the parenchyma of the testis into uh, several lobules. And these lobules are composed of several seminiferous tubules. Now, each of these seminiferous tubules, okay, they are made up of epithelial cells. Okay, andyan yung mga spermatogonia mo, then your primary spermatocyte, and then the secondary spermatocyte, and then the spermatid. Now, along the in, interspersed between your spermatogonia are tall columnar cells known as your Sertoli cells, which will provide support to the developing spermatocyte. Okay, so usually the sperm cells that are produced within the seminiferous tubule, they are actually anatomically mature, but they are not yet physiologically mature to fertilize an ovum. Okay, so usually this uh, spermatozoan will be transferred towards the epididymis, okay, where they will start to become motile. Okay, so later on, this will be transported via the vas deferens. Okay, this is your vas deferens or your ductus deferens. Okay, until the level or at the area of the seminal vesicle. This is the seminal vesicle, wherein the vas deferens will merge with the duct of the seminal vesicle, okay, forming what we call the ejaculatory duct. Now, normally the ejaculatory duct lies within the parenchyma of the prostate gland. This is the prostate gland. Okay. Now, just before the ejaculatory duct leaves the prostate, usually the urethra will merge with the ejaculatory duct. That's why the both urinary and the both urinary and reproductive functions are performed by your urethra. Okay, so they convey both urine as well as the seminal fluid. Now, outside the prostate, okay, the urethra will be infiltrated by the duct of the bulbourethral glands. Okay, and then the urethra will continue, okay, until it empties its contents via the orifice of the urethra within the glans penis. Okay, all right. Right. So this is how your sperm will travel, starting from the seminiferous tubules. Okay, so they are the spermatozoans are created within the testes, specifically within seminiferous tubules. So they will travel to the epididymis, okay, then to the vas deferens, the ejaculatory duct, and out to the urethra. Now there are accessory organs, as I mentioned earlier, and this will provide either nutrition or additional fluid because most of the time the fluid that accompanies your spermatozoa will be reabsorbed along with the way through the vas deferens. Okay, so these will the accessory organs will assist the spermatozoa. Okay, just like your seminal vesicle, your prostate gland, as well as the bulbourethral gland or the Cowper's gland. Now, the external genitalia include the scrotum. Okay, so the scrotum is actually the sac, okay, which houses the testes, and the penis, okay, which is the erectile organ or tissue. Okay, so here is another picture on the contralateral side naman. You have the testis, okay, which is covered by this skin known as your scrotum. So the all of the spermatozoa produced by your seminiferous tubules will be forwarded to the epididymis where they will start to be motile. Now, aside from their being motile at this point, usually they are accompanied by a few amount of seminal fluid. However, along its course, some of the seminal fluid will be reabsorbed. Okay, and by the time it reaches the level of the seminal vesicle, okay, this is the seminal vesicle, it will merge with the duct of the seminal vesicle, forming your ejaculatory duct. Okay, yeah. So ito yung duct ng seminal vesicle mo, and this is your vas deferens. It forms your ejaculatory duct. Now the ejaculatory duct, on the other hand, will merge with the urethra. Okay, and it will be a common conduit for both urine as well as semen. Okay, so any ejaculation will be released through the urethra, which lies uh, within the corpus spongiosum, which is one of the spongy tissues that make up the pee. Okay, all right. Next are primordial germ cells. So this is the primitive one. This is the primitive cell that will give rise to your spermatogonia, okay, as well as your primary spermatocyte and your secondary spermatocyte. So this is the earliest recognizable stem cell, okay, for both male and female. Okay, Kasi sa ovary, meron ka ring mga mga primordial germ cells. Okay? Now, the process of spermatogenesis or the production of your spermatozoa, okay, start during puberty. Now, this will continue until old age, until a male reaches what we call mga andropause. Okay? Now, spermatogenesis is divided into three stages. The first one is your spermatocytogenesis, and the second one, meiosis, and the last stage is spermiogenesis. So here's another picture showing the relation of the male reproductive system with the urinary system. No? Okay, at the top you have this urinary bladder. Okay, and underneath the urinary bladder you have your prostate gland. Now within the roof of the prostate gland, you have a pair of seminal vesicles. And usually, its duct will merge with the vas deferens, producing your ejaculatory duct. Okay. Now it will exit the prostate, okay, and form a fusion or merger. It will merge with the duct of your Cowper's gland or your bulbourethral gland. Okay. Then you have your the urethra, okay, which will eventually empty via the orifice or the urethral orifice, which lies within the gland space. All right, let's take a look at this. Okay. A section of the testis, no? Because this is composed of several lobules, okay, which consists of a thin tubular structure known as your seminiferous tubule. Now we call it seminiferous because they are the one responsible in the production of this spermatozoa. Okay, so all of these spermatozoa produced by your seminiferous tubule will eventually migrate towards the epididymis. Okay, and we'll discuss later on the different ducts that form this network. Okay, so during spermacytogenesis, this refers to the development of your spermatogonia to become spermatocyte. Okay. Now there are three types of spermatogonia in a mature testis. You have the dark type A spermatogonia, okay, which is represented by the symbol capital A and small d. Okay. Now this dark type A spermatogonia has not entered the active mitosis yet. Okay, so they have not entered the spermatogenic cell cycle. So they usually do not divide and considered as dormant research stem cell. Now they will continue to divide and become the pale type A spermatogonium or the type AP spermatogonium. So the pale type A spermatogonium is a very highly mitotic cell, producing or transforming into your type B spermatogonium. Okay? Then we have the type B spermatogonium. And this type B is the one that will undergo mitosis and will differentiate to become your primary spermatocyte. Now, primary okay, which is also the largest cell in the male germ cell lineage. Okay. Okay. No problem. All right. Now, the next stage is the stage of meiosis. Okay. So remember, in your mitosis, okay, as the cell divide, usually this will produce daughter cells. Okay. So each cell will produce two daughter cells. Okay. But each of these daughter cells contain a diploid number of chromosomes. Now, in meiosis, however, the final um, sorry, wala. Plus excuse, 5 minutes lang. Okay? Hindi ko alam kung ano nangyayari sa akin. Wait lang. All right, sorry about that. Aga ko kasi nagising ay 12 o'clock gising na ako. Okay? All right, so let's continue. Ano ba tayo? Okay. All right, okay? So the second stage is known as meiosis, okay? And usually in meiosis, the daughter cells would end up as haploid. Okay? So from your primary spermatocyte, okay, this will undergo meiosis, and the daughter cell is known as your secondary spermatocyte, and each of these secondary spermatocytes are already haploid. Okay, and this secondary spermatocyte will further undergo a second round of meiosis, okay, which will give rise to four haploid spermatids. Okay? Diba, iba yung mitosis. Usually, the daughter cells of your mitosis would give rise uh, to diploid cells, diploid daughter cells. Okay. All right. So the next is spermiogenesis. Okay. And during this process, the spermatids are transformed into the spermatozoa. Okay. Now, normally the spermatozoa are anatomically they are mature, but physiologically they are still immature. Okay. Now they will only become mature once they get within the female genital tract. Okay. Now, the spermiogenesis is divided into three phases. You have your Golgi phase, your acrosomal phase, and the maturation phase. So during the Golgi phase, there will be mga secretory vesicles that will accumulate within the head of the spermatozoa or the acrosome, okay, which is the pinakatip ng head, okay. And the nucleus will condense. And so, histologically or under the microscope, you can see that the nuclei of spermatozoa are hyperchromatic, okay, and they will elongate. Now, their centrioles will move toward the surface of the cells, and they will start to form a tail. Now, during the axonal phase, the vesicles that have accumulated at the acrosome portion, the head of the sperm, okay, will transform into an acrosome, which is a cup-like structure covering a big part of the nuclear surface. And during this phase also, there is an intervening structure that will develop, okay, between the head and the tail, which is known as the middle piece. Okay. Then during the maturation phase, the spermatids will eventually transform into mature spermatozoon. Okay. And it will also form a mitochondrial sheath. The next is permeation. Okay. And this marks the end of spermiogenesis. So here, the spermatozoa are released into the fluid-filled lumen of the seminiferous tubule. So they will travel towards the epididymis, okay, passing through different ductal system of the male genital tract. Now they are released into the seminiferous tubule as mature anatomically, okay, but physiologically they are still immature. Okay, So they are not capable of fertilizing an ovum yet. Okay, but further maturation happens in the epididymis. Okay, now there is a process kasi ano, capacitation, I think. Okay, that occurs within the female genital tract. Okay, so within the epididymis, they will start to become motile. Okay, so in total, it will take about 64 days before a spermatogonia will become developed into a spermatozoa. Okay, right. So this is how it happens. No, now within the within the seminiferous tubule, you have your spermatogonia, okay, which lines the outer um, layer of the seminiferous tubule. Okay, so this will undergo mitosis, okay, forming your cell, type A spermatogonium, okay, which will eventually will undergo further mitosis, forming your type B spermatogonium. Okay, now so the type B spermatogonium will be the one undergoing meiosis or two rounds of meiosis, producing your primary spermatocyte, which in this case will produce two haploid secondary spermatocytes. And these two secondary spermatocytes will undergo the second round of mitosis, producing four spermatids, which are all haploid. Okay? So eventually, these spermatids will develop or mature to become your sperm cells or your spermatozoa. Okay. Now, a spermatozoa consists of a head and a very long tail. Now, within the head, you have an acosomal cap, which contains the enzymes that will disperse the cells covering or protecting the ovum, okay, during fertilization, which is the corona radiata. And also, it will digest this thin membrane around the immediately around the ovum, which is the zona pellucidal. Okay. Now, the tail is composed of four segments. First, you have the neck, okay, which is that part that is attached to the head. Then you have the middle piece, which is surrounded by mitochondrial piece. Kaya yung ano, kasi since the tail will allow your spermatozoa to move through the ducts as well as the within the female genital tract. Okay, um, this usually will require some energy, and this energy will be provided by your mitochondria. Okay, then also we have the principal piece, and finally the end piece. Okay. So this is the head of the sperm. Okay, then you have your acrosomal cap, which contains the enzymes that will digest the zona pellucida and break down the corona radiata of uh, the female ovum. Then you have the middle piece, okay, the neck, the middle piece, okay, and the tail and the end piece. Okay. Now next is the testes. Okay. So the testes are organs that produce the male gametes. Okay. Now, at the same time, it has endocrine function. It produces the testosterone, which is responsible for the secondary sexual characteristics, okay, of male. Now, there are pair. This testis is a pair of oval bodies, okay, that lies within the scrotum or the scrotal sac, okay, which is composed of skin and subcutaneous tissue. And it is also supported by a thin layer of smooth muscle, okay, which allows or protects the testis, okay, depending on the temperature of the environment. So kung medyo mainit yung panahon, no, usually these muscles will relax, okay? But when you go into a cooler environment, no, punta ka ng North Pole, punta ka ng Mount Everest, okay, where the temperatures are so low. Now, the body will protect the testes. Kasi um, usually, temperature has a big influence in the development of the spermatozoa. And as much as possible, spermatogenesis occurs within normal body temperature. So, what these muscles within the scrotal sac, they will contract, okay, and they will place the scrotum as near as possible to the abdominal cavity in order to maintain its optimal temperature. Okay? So the testis is enclosed by a tough fibrous capsule called your tunica albuginea. And ghostly is with uh, a pearly white or light tan in color, and it is very smooth. Now, histologically, the tunica albuginea is composed of dense irregular connective tissue. Now, along the posterior wall of the testis is what we call the mediastinum testis or the mediastinum. So it is a thickened part of the tunica albuginea, and it is a site where where the different blood vessels and lymphatic vessels will enter and exit the testis. Okay, and aside from that, also the ductus efferences or your vas efferens. Okay, so it is also the part, okay, where the tunica albuginea will send connective tissues deep into the testicular parenchyma, which divides the testis into smaller lobules. Okay, so these lobules is composed of several seminiferous tubules. Okay, and each lobule is usually occupied by your seminiferous tubule. Okay, so lipat muna tayo. Okay, so lipat tayo sa ano, sa okay, right? Guys, can you see my screen?
Yes po, sir.
So this is the whole test histologically. Okay, so it is divided into your lobules. Okay, and each of these lobules is composed of your seminiferous tubules. Okay, now this is actually the epididymis. Okay, now externally, um, let's look at the tunica albuginea. Okay, although hindi naman siya mukhang irregular. Okay, dito. Okay. Sorry, mabagal ng PL. Okay. So this is the full thickness is of the tunica albuginea. Okay. And these are all your seminiferous tubules. Okay. Yeah. Those are your seminiferous tubules. Okay. And normally, this space that you see, which is the dividing structure of each lobule, is derived from your tunica albuginea. Okay. All right, so let's look at the individual seminiferous. Wait lang ang bag. All right. Okay. Now look at this. Along the basal portion of each seminiferous tubule, you have mga dark uh, staining cells. Okay. Those are your dark type A spermatogonia. Okay. Then somewhere in between, meron kang mga pale spermatogonia. Then sometimes meron kang makikita mga Sertoli cell. Okay, like this one. Ito yung iyong Sertoli cells. Okay. And here you have your spermatids. Okay. Hanap tayo. So pag tinignan mo yung sa area ng epididymis, the epididymis is filled with the lumen of the epididymis is filled with mature spermatozoa already. Nagtagal. Wait lang guys. Wait lang. So notice this, the apical surface of the cells that lines your epididymis. Okay, they have these apical modifications, which are known as what? What are those apical modifications? Anyone? Cilia, microvilli, stereocilia, flagella, ano yan? So, anyone? Sino gusto manghula? Now, we have discussed this during yung discussion on epithelial cells. Okay, sino nakakaalala? Ayaw, kung di nga lang yan nag-ano. Okay. Well, anyway, you can do this on your own. But those are actually your mature spermatozoa that have migrated from the seminiferous tubules within the testes. Okay. Okay. So here are your Sertoli cells. Okay. Ayun. Hmm. Sorry guys, hindi ano eh, ayaw luminaw eh. Anyway, kaya, kaya na internet. Okay. Now, guys, you can review these structures and just refer to the text on the right. Okay. Now, if you want to fill the whole screen, just press space bar and it will give you a full screen of the image. Okay. All right. So anyway, let's get back to the PowerPoint. So you have seen the tunica albuginea, you have seen the seminiferous tubules. Okay. All right. So next. Okay. Now, normally, when you do gross examination of a testicular specimen, it will include what we call the spermatic cord. Okay. Now, the spermatic cord contains the blood vessels, both arteries and veins, as well as lymphatic, a portion of the uh, vas deferens. Okay. All right. So this is the testis. Okay. Pinutol lang yung ano. Bali, hindi siya naka-totally open. So what was taken off is just a quarter of the testis. Now, normally, grossly, this will show you mga yellowish brown na spongy tissues, okay, which is composed of your seminiferous tubules. Okay, so here, um, normally from the seminiferous tubules, the spermatozoa will travel via to the recti, okay, or the straight tubules, okay, into your retitestis and then eventually to your vas efferents, okay, or your efferent tubules, okay, towards the epididymis. Then from the epididymis, the spermatozoa will drain via the vas deferens, okay, and up towards the area of the seminal vesicle, wherein the vas deferens will merge with the duct of the seminal vesicle, forming what we call the ejaculatory duct. Okay? And then eventually the ejaculatory duct will merge with the urethra, forming a common conduit, okay, for both urine as well as the sperm. Okay? All right. Now the normally the testis is lined by your tunica albuginea. Okay, so you have your um, visceral layer of the. This is the tunica vaginalis. Okay, this is the tunica albuginea, yung portion. Okay, then externally you have the visceral layer of the tunica vaginalis, and the parietal layer of the tunica vaginalis is usually adherent to the skin. Uh, connective tissues underneath the skin and the different mga muscle layers. Okay, and that muscle is a, if I'm not mistaken, is the cremaster muscle. Okay, all right. So this is your a quarter section of a single seminiferous tubule. Okay. Look at the spermatogonia lining the basal portion of uh, the seminiferous tubule, and normally they rest on the basement membrane or the basal lamina, okay, which is the thick blue line here. Okay. Now, in between your spermatogonia and your spermatocyte, okay, you have these Sertoli cells. So they will provide support to the developing spermatozoa. So yeah, and they are actively dividing. Okay. Now, outside the seminiferous tubule, now between the interstitial tissues, you also have what we call the Leydig cells. Okay. Now, the Leydig cells will also provide nutrition as well as other support requirements of your spermatozoa. Okay. Next. Now, the next is the interstitial cells of Leydig. Okay. So, as I have demonstrated earlier, yeah, okay, you have your Leydig cells. Okay. They lie outside the seminiferous tubules. Okay. So that's one of the difference between your Sertoli cells and the Leydig cells. So the interstitial cells of Leydig, okay, they are large ovoid cells, okay, with round nucleus and contain fine chromatin material. So their cytoplasm does not contain secretory granules. Okay? Instead, they are filled with lipid droplets and elongated crystals of Ranke. So the Leydig cells is the one that will secrete testosterone. And remember, testosterone is responsible for the secondary male characteristics. Okay? And they also maintain the epithelium of the seminiferous tubules. Okay? Okay? And they control spermatogenesis, okay? Which is a proper function of the accessory gland of the male reproductive system. Now, with the production of testosterone, it is also regulated by luteinizing hormone from the pituitary gland. Okay, so the same luteinizing hormone that will um, that is seen in the female. Okay, so here are your Leydig cells. Okay, you have your Sertoli cells. So ang mga Leydig cells mo, makikita mo dito lang. Okay, outside the seminiferous tubules. So what you see within the seminiferous tubules, in mga pale staining cells, are actually your Sertoli cells. Okay. Yeah, example ng yung Leydig cells. Okay, you have your Sertoli cells, then you have your spermatogonia. Okay. Here you have your spermatid. So kita nyo, undergoing cellular division. Okay. Yeah. Now the next is the seminiferous tubule. Now for each lobule of the testis will contain around 1 to 4 centimeters tubule. And this is a highly coiled duct that whenever you uncoil it, okay, usually this will measure per second. Okay, so they are small but long. Okay, and they are filled with fluid. Now their wall consists of an outer fibrous sheet, okay, containing myoid cells or muscle-like cell. Okay, and the inner epithelium is usually lined by your spermatogonia and occasionally by Sertoli cell. Okay, so the basal layer of cells normally lies on or rests on a basement membrane. So the epithelium of the seminiferous tubule is of epithelial type, and they are stratified. And so they are mostly the seminiferous tubules are lined by your spermatogonia as well as your Sertoli cells or your supporting cells. Now, the Sertoli cells are large cells. They are tall and usually with a broad basis, and they rest on the basement membrane or the basal lamina. So, apically, they will taper as they extend towards the luminal surface of the epithelium. Now, Sertoli cells, okay, they provide support and provide protect the developing gamete. So they also produce fluid, okay, which fills the lumen of your seminiferous tubule. And they also facilitate the transport of your spermatozoa to their different excretory duct until it reaches the urethra. Okay. Now, Sertoli cells is also capable of phagocytic function. Okay, so they can take off mga excess cytoplasm that are easily shed off by the spermatid. It also produces inhibin, and usually your inhibin, as the name implies, this will downregulate your FSH secretion coming from the pituitary gland. So the activity of your Sertoli cells, as well as the spermatogenesis, is usually increased by the follicle stimulating hormone. Okay, so the activity of your Sertoli cells and therefore spermatogenesis is usually stimulated or increased by your follicle stimulating hormone. So ito yung counterpart ng maturation ng ovum mo. Okay? Because this is brought about by the follicle stimulating. Okay? All right. Now, next is the blood testis barrier. So, with this barrier, which is brought about by a specialized junctional complex called your tight junction or your sonula adherent between the bases of circular cells. So, this tight junction form your blood testis barrier, dividing the lumen of the seminiferous tubules into a basal as well as abdominal part. Now, normally the basal compartment is occupied by the spermatogonia, and occasionally some Sertoli cells. Okay? And this is where spermocytogenesis takes place. Now, this will give rise to your primary spermatocyte, which will migrate towards the abdominal compartment or the apical surface of the individual cell. Okay. Then we have your abdominal compartment. So this is a site where your primary spermatocytes divide and transform into a spermatozoa, okay, just before they are released into the lumen. Okay. All right. So this area is actually the basal compartment, and this area is actually the abdominal compartment. This is your lumen, and look at those spermatozoa that have matured, okay, lining the luminal surface. So yeah, no, this is where your tight junctions are usually located. Okay. So here you have a diploid, okay, haploid. Okay. Now the next are the ducts of the testes. Now this duct is responsible for the transportation and the conduction of the sperm cells, which are produced by the seminiferous tubules. Now, these ducts may be classified either as an intratesticular or extratesticular genital duct. Okay. Now, the ducts of the testis may be classified either as intratesticular or extratesticular. So, obviously, no, pag sinabi mong extratesticular, they lie outside the testes. Okay? And intratesticular, okay, lies within the testes, like the testes, okay, tubular recti, while your extratesticular genital duct, okay, wherein the ducts lie outside the okay. Now, within the testes, you have different ducts, okay? The first one is the tubuli recti, which is actually a continuation of the seminiferous tubule. So they're responsible for bringing the sperm towards the epididymis. But before it reaches the epididymis, it will usually pass through the rete testis, which is an anastomosing network composed of canals, okay, that have irregular lumen. Now, most of this is usually seen within the mediastinum testis. Then the next is the rete testis. Okay. So from the tubuli recti, which is the continuation of your seminiferous tubule, okay, it will pass through the rete testis and then the vas efferents or the ductuli efferentes. Okay. And normally, this will this is composed of mga fine 12 to 20 fine tubules that usually drain the rete testis. So these penetrate the tunica albuginea and will exit the testis at the posterior superior surface. Now, the ductus efferentes usually will merge into your ductus epididymis immediately after leaving the testis. Then the epithelium usually would show a scallop appearance, okay, because it consists of two types of cells. You have your ciliated columnar and non-ciliated cuboidal, but with uh, microvilli. Excuse me. Then outside the testis, no, we have what we call the extratesticular genital duct, and they serve as passageway for the sperm from the testis to the outside world. Okay, you have your ductus epididymis, your ductus deferens, and the ejaculatory duct, and eventually the urethra. Okay, okay. So here are your lobules, okay, which is composed of your seminiferous tubules, which will empty via the tubuli recti into the rete testis, which is the anastomosing network of duct. Okay, and each of these will drain into the epididymis via the your vas efferentes, okay, or your ductus efferentes. So from the epididymis, or this is your ductus epididymis, this will drain into the vas deferens. Normally, the vas deferens will go straight upward, okay, within the spermatocord, and this will, um, usually at the distal end nito, just before reaching the seminal vesicle, it will have a dilated portion known as the ampulla, okay, and eventually merge siya with the duct of your seminal vesicle, forming what we call the ejaculatory duct, which eventually will merge with the urethra, okay, which will serve as a common conduit or for your for the urine as well as the sperm. Okay. Now, usually urine is toxic for the sperm cells, and so the body has its own way of avoiding the mixture of urine and sperm cells. Okay. So, meron tayong tinatawag ng mga sphincter muscles within the neck of the urinary bladder that will usually constrict whenever sperm will pass through the urethra. Okay. Okay. So again, you have your seminiferous tubules. Okay, and seminiferous tubules. Then you have your tubuli recti. Then you have your rete testis, your vas efferentes, and then your ductus epididymis or the epididymis. Okay. So this will empty into the vas deferens or your ductus deferens, okay, until it reaches the seminal vesicle. Okay. Okay. So within the ductus epididymis, no, um, um, the ductus epididymis is actually a duct that will traverse the epididymis, and it's also the main component of the epididymis. So it is actually 6 meters long, okay, when you uncoil it. but they measures only 1 millimeter in diameter. So it is made up of principal as well as basal cells. Okay. Now the principal cells are responsible for absorbing 90% of the fluid that are secreted by the seminiferous tubules. So medyo kumukonti yung fluid that will accompany the sperm cells. Okay? Kaya yung mga seminal vesicles mo as well as the Cowper's glands will usually provide secretions that will support the movement of your sperm cells. Okay? So the ductus epididymis is a storage site for your spermatozoa, and this is where the spermatozoa will start to become motile. So here, the spermatozoa are already fully motile, okay, meaning they can move on their own, okay, upon leaving the ductus epididymis. But they still have to undergo capacitation. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina, no? Before it can fertilize an ovum. But usually, capacitation only occurs within the female genital tract, okay? Along its way in finding the ovum, okay? So, capacitation is actually a biochemical process, and this will take around 5 to 6 hours before it's complete. Okay. Then next we have the epididymis. Now the epididymis is a C-shaped structure that lies along the mediastinum testis, and it occupies an area measuring 7.5 cm in length, okay, from the superior and posterior portion of the testis. Now the uh, epididymis is made up of the head, the body, as well as the tail. Okay. Then you have the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. Okay. So it is a fibromuscular tube measuring 45 centimeter long, and it starts at the tail of the epididymis and turns upwards, okay, towards the posterior surface of the testis and within the spermatic cord, okay, until it enters the abdominal pelvic cavity. So they are usually embedded within the spermatocord along with the testicular arteries, veins, lymphatics, and nerves. Okay. Now the ampulla, as I mentioned, is a dilated distal portion of the ductus deferens. Now next is the ejaculatory duct. Now, the ejaculatory duct is usually formed by the fusion of the ducts of the seminal vesicle and the vas deferens. Okay, and this usually will traverse the prostate gland. Okay, then next we have the urethra. So this is the last segment of the ductal system of the male reproductive system. Okay, and as well as the urinary system. So it is a common conduit for both urine and the semen. Okay, so yeah. So this is your ejaculatory duct. Medyo maikli lang siya. Okay. So a little distal. Okay, you have your duct of the pulpourethral glands or the Cowper's gland. Okay. So here you have your testicular lobules, okay, composed of the minute um, seminiferous tube. Okay. Questions so far, guys? All right. So next is the penis. Okay. Excuse me. So this is the male copulatory organ. Okay. So this is the one uh, being inserted into the female genital tract. Okay. During copulation, and it consists of three cylindrical masses. Okay, or cavernous bodies. Now, these cavernous bodies are usually bound by connective tissue and covered externally by skin. Now, on cross section, usually the penis is composed of two dorsal uh, wait lang. Okay, so you have your two corpora cavernosa penis, okay, which usually occupy the dorsum of the penis and lie side by side. And along the ventral portion of the corpora cavernosa, you have your corpus spongiosum, okay, or the corpus spongiosum penis, okay, which occupies the median plane or the ventral to the corpora cavernosa penis. Now, the glans penis, no, which is actually, in layman's term, ito yung pinaka-head ng penis. So this is an enlarged distal portion, and it is in the uncircumcised. Usually, this is covered by a fold of skin, which is the prepuce. Now, it become a tradition, no, both for the Jewish and the no, some Catholics, to circumcise, and that is um, both a religious ritual, no, and at the same time it is a hygienic practice, okay, because the prepuce usually would cause accumulation of a white cheesy secretion, okay, along uh, the basal portion of the glans penis, okay, which is called yung smegma, okay. And there are reports that this increases the likelihood of a male to develop a testicular tumor or penile tumor, rather. Okay. Now, contrary to what many people believe, no, the penis is not made up of muscles, it is not made up of bone. Okay, so it is actually composed of cavernous bodies. And these cavernous bodies have a tendency to be filled with blood, okay, especially during erection. Okay. So this erectile tissue consists of a labyrinthine system of anastomosing blood channels. And so they are lined by endothelial cells or endothelium. Now, normally this is separated by connective tissue containing both elastic and muscle fibers. So during an erection, usually the blood will flood the cavernuses, okay? And this causes the erection of the penis. Okay? Now, the glands of Tyson, which is the glands that will secrete your smegma, will located within the proximal portion of the glans penis. And okay, sorry, all right. So you have your glands of Tyson, and these are a type of sebaceous glands, okay, located in the proximal portion of the glans penis, and as well as the undersurface of the prepuce. So in an uncircumcised penis, usually the secretion of glands will accumulate, forming a cheesy material known as the smegma. Okay. Okay. So this is a cross section of the penis. Okay. You have your two dorsal corpora cavernosa, and the dark areas are actually the vascular channels. Okay, where blood will flow. Okay. And along the ventral side, you have the corpus spongiosum, which also harbors the urethra. Okay. Then it is covered by connective tissue. Okay. And externally, it is covered by the skin. So next, okay. Now look at this. No? Look at the urethra. From the urinary bladder, it will merge with the ejaculatory duct. Okay. So this portion is known as your prostatic urethra, and this is your membranous urethra. Okay. And the membranous urethra is usually the shortest and thinnest layer of thinnest portion of the urethra. Then you have your urethra. Okay. So next, the different accessory glands like the prostate, the seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral gland. Now, normally their secretions make up at least most the volume of the male ejaculate or the semen. Okay, and the majority of this fluid is contributed by the seminal vesicles, and 30% coming from the prostate gland, and the remaining 10% is composed of the sperm cells and the bulbourethral secretion. Okay. Now, the prostate gland is a chestnut-shaped gland measuring 4 centimeters in greatest dimension or in diameter. Now, if yung parang itsura niya korte siya ng kastanyas. Okay? Normally, the prostatic urethra will pass through the prostate gland along the center, okay? And the right and left ejaculatory duct, okay, will unite with the urethra. Okay. Also within the gland. Now, the parenchyma of a prostate gland usually is made up of glandular structures as well as muscles. And they are arranged concentrically around the urethra. So the secretion of the prostate gland is usually alkaline in nature, okay? And it contains enzymes, fibrinolysin, prostaglandin, and a compound with antibiotic properties. Okay? So look at this. Ano, okay? So kung nakakita na kayo ng castañas, di ba ganyan ang itsura ng castañas? Okay? So that is the prostate. And usually the urethra, okay, passes through the prostate gland. Okay? All right. Okay. So yan. You have your urethra merging with the ejaculatory duct, okay? And then the common urethra. Now, normally, the prostate lies anterior to your rectum. That's why often, particularly mga surgeons, no, they do the DRE or the digital rectal exam. Okay, because when you insert an index finger, usually you are capable of uh, palpating the prostate gland via the rectum. Okay? Okay. Right. Next. So look at this. Okay. Because of the presence of your prostate gland, usually the external sphincter is usually smaller in males as compared to the females because they do not have prostate gland. Okay. Okay. Now, normally kasi, the urethra in females are usually shorter as compared to the male. Okay. And this shorter urethra predisposes the female into mga recurrent urinary tract infection. Particularly, um, ano yung way mo, paano ka mag-wash. No? Okay? From posterior going anterior or from anterior going posterior. Usually, when you do posterior going to anterior, when you wash your um, private part, okay, usually this causes introduction of bacteria coming from the area around the anus. Okay, so kaya nagkakaroon ng urinary tract infection. Now, the next are the seminal vesicles. Okay, so these are paired organs, okay, and they are sac-like, and it actually resembles ears ng coyotes and roadrunner. So it's a sac-like structure measuring around 5 centimeters. Now, each seminal vesicle has a long, highly coiled, narrow tube, okay, that is enveloped by a very vascular connective tissue capsule. Now, their secretion contain fructose. and fructose is a sugar, okay, which makes them an important source of energy for spermatozoa. Okay? But aside from fructose, it also contains prostaglandins as well as fibrinogen. So these structures are your seminal vesicle. Okay, then here you have your uh, vas deferens. Okay, we merge forming your ejaculatory duct. Here is the urethra, and you have your Cowper's gland. Okay. And there are smaller glands which are known as your periurethral glands of Litre. Okay. So most of the fluid in the semen is produced by your seminal vesicles, some by the bladder, by the prostate, okay, and the rest by the Cowper's gland. Okay. So this is the seminal vesicle. Okay, and this is the dilated portion or the ampulla of the vas deferens. Although hindi natin makita rito yung fusion or the merger of the duct of the seminal vesicle and the vas deferens. Again, the seminal vesicle, you have your ejaculatory duct, then the urethra, and out via the orifice. Okay. Now the next are the bulbourethral gland or the Cowper's gland. Okay. They are also a paired gland. Okay. And measures are about the size of a pea. Okay. So they are yellowish organs and they are embedded in the sphincter urethral muscle. Now, their secretion consists of a clear viscous fluid, which is called mucoprotein. And this is usually discharged shortly after ejaculation. Now, their secretions usually will assist or lubricate the urethra for the easy passage of your spermatozoa within the urethra. Okay. Okay. So medyo malabo itong picture nito. But then, right. So guys, I think this is the last leg on the male reproductive system. Okay. So we still have 7 minutes, but I'd rather start the discussion of the female reproductive system next meeting. Okay. Now on Thursday, guys. Okay. Yun yung last day. Ay, sorry. Okay, wala na. Okay. So on Thursday, guys, we'll just have our first quiz for the final period, and this will cover only the urinary system now. Okay, so go over your your book. Okay, read your book, and you may go over your PowerPoint. Okay, and I think masabi ko na yung sa finals. For the final exam, by the way, it will be composed of 100 questions, but I'll be limiting the pictures to about 15 at the most. Okay. Still more of multiple choice. Okay. Now, guys, if you're having a problem with your grades, okay, you can always consult with me anytime. Just let me know kung ano. Kung free naman ako, we can do it as soon as possible. Okay. If not, we'll schedule it. Okay. Thursday is usually free ako ng Thursday, but not this coming Thursday. Okay. Right? Sino pang delikado ang grade sa sa tawag dito, sa histo. Although marami naman nakabawi sa during the semi-final period. Okay. Right. So, guys, any questions with regards to the male reproductive system? Uh, Okay. So, guys, if there are no other questions, again, thank you for listening. I hope meron kayong natutunan. Uh, Di ko alam kung lalabas sa quiz. Okay, but then, most likely, yung iba. Okay. So, guys, thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you again next Tuesday. All right. Thank you.